Alright guys, it's a Sunday afternoon, it's the middle of winter, and it's cold outside. For you football fans, the Super Bowl's coming up in a couple of weeks, so it's a good time to make some chili. Alright guys, a little bit of a tough one. We're going to make some chili today, and chili can be a bit of a personal preference, let's say, as far as recipes go and as far as what goes in it, etc. There's a million different ways to make it, but I will show you my version of chili, which is fairly simple, I would say, but it's tasty. So let me bring you through the ingredients. Alright guys, let's talk a little bit about the ingredients for this chili. I'm making a beef chili, and I've got 3 pounds of medium ground beef here. You could use lean ground beef or extra lean, whatever your preference is. You could also use a ground turkey or a ground chicken if you wanted to make this into a white chili, we would call it. But in this particular case, I had this in the freezer, so we're going with the ground beef. For vegetables, I've got some celery stalks, and these are optional. I like a little bit of celery in mine for some extra flavor and some extra texture. I've got some sweet bell peppers here. I've got some red and green bell peppers. Nice for color. You could use something like a Cubanelle pepper if you could find that. That would be good as well. I've got 1 big Spanish onion here as well. Getting into the canned ingredients, we've got some white and red kidney beans. However, you could use pretty much any bean that you wanted to. You could do this with black beans, you could do it with navy beans, you could do it with Romano beans, you could do it with chickpeas even if you wanted to. I like the white and the red kidney beans. I think they taste the same, although it's a nice variation of color in the chili, so that's why I've got the red and the white. We want some sort of tomato product. In this case, I'm using diced tomatoes. You could use whole Roma tomatoes. You could use a tomato puree. I don't particularly like huge chunks of tomato in my chili, so I'm hoping that these tomatoes will break down a little bit. You can see that I've got the herb and spice blended ones. You could just have plain ones if you wanted to, but the herbs and spices are not going to hurt this chili, and in fact, they'll probably enhance it a little bit. I like to add a little bit of beef broth to my chili. I don't want it to be too thick. I don't want to add water to it, so we're going to add some beef broth for some extra flavor. Again, if you're going with a turkey or a chicken chili, you could use a chicken stock or you could use a vegetable stock. I like some Worcester in my my chili, and of course you got to have chili powder to make chili. Some optional ingredients here. I've got a chipotle pepper. So chipotle is a smoked and dried jalapeno pepper, but you could use something like an ancho or a pasilla pepper if you had them. This is actually ground into a paste. I've seen them obviously in cans as well, usually packed in like a tomato sauce. You could use a dried powdered form of this. If you don't have this, I'm using this primarily because I like the smokiness and I like the heat. It's not overly hot. I don't like an overly hot and spicy chili, so the chipotle works really well for me. If you wanted something besides this or you couldn't find this, you could use simply something like a hot sauce like a Cholula or a Tabasco, for example. You could even get into some of the more exotic things like sriracha or gochujang, that kind of thing, if you wanted to. But that will serve my purposes. So chipotle paste here. And I've got some chopped garlic here. This is actually garlic paste as well, or garlic puree. And we've got some canola oil here, simply just to start sauteing and browning off this ground beef. So enough said about the ingredients. I will give you some quantities, cup measurements and weight measurements as we go along. We've got our pot on the burner heating up, just on low heat. We're going to make as full a pot as we can. So we'll pop that lid off, we'll add the canola oil, turn the burner up to high, and get ready to saute that beef off. Alright guys, we've got the heat cranked up. We're going to add just a tablespoon of canola oil into the pot. Get that nice and smoking hot. We want to have a nice hot pan in order to brown this ground beef. I'm going to put it in, we're not going to touch it, we're just going to let it go. We don't want to move it around. We want to basically just leave it, and you'll be able to hear the difference in the sound when the beef starts frying as opposed to boiling, because what's going to happen when you put that beef in there, it's going to release a lot of moisture and fat. And what you want to do is just leave it, resist the urge to toss it around, just leave it and eventually you'll hear a sound change when all that liquid starts to evaporate out of there, and you're left with just a little bit of fat in there. That's when you know that the beef will actually be beginning to brown, and at that point you can actually start moving it around with a spoon. So we're going to start adding that beef in there. You can see the smoke just coming off that oil. So here we go. Just break it up as you go along. This beef was in the freezer, so it's still a little frozen. Where you want a nice heavy bottom pot that'll hold your heat, not create any hot spots. So you want a nice even heat on the bottom. That's where the cast iron enamel sort of comes into its own. It's great for this type of thing. So again, we've got about 3 pounds of ground beef here. Almost all in. Alright, so we'll let that cook. Again, we're not going to touch it. We'll let it cook. We'll come back when we hear a difference in sound. So you can see what I'm talking about as far as the water coming out of the beef. That's not all fat. That's a lot of water. You can actually see the water bubbling on the side. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for all that water to evaporate. And again, you'll hear the difference when that water evaporates and the beef starts to actually fry and brown. So hopefully you can see that. Let me zoom in a little bit. You see all that moisture in there? Alright, we'll come back and hopefully you'll be able to hear a different sound when all that water's gone. Put you on the chili cam so you can watch the chili just cooking away. Alright, while that ground beef is browning away, or boiling away, still got lots of liquid left in it, we'll start prepping our vegetables. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to clean a bell pepper properly, obviously for chopping. So, you like my spatterware? We call this spatterware up here. It's sort of enamel over cast iron. I actually bought these about 30 years ago. A friend of mine, we were in cooking school, and we had a chili competition, so we figured we'd buy this spatterware as part of our presentation. So this is what we presented our chili in. I can't remember if we won or not. But, the other gentleman's name that was participating with me was named Pierre St. Pierre. A long time ago, 30 years ago. Alright. So how to clean a bell pepper for dicing? Pretty simple. Bottom, top, okay, roll the pepper on its side, knife in, and basically just roll it around the pepper. Watch your fingers towards the end, hold the core, keep continuing on. There you go. Take your top, take the core out. There you go, you've got your parts ready for dicing your bell peppers. What I like to do is just then cut mine into strips. We don't want them to be too big, we don't want them to be too small. Remember, this is chili, so you want it to be fairly chunky. You just want all the vegetables to basically be approximately the same size. Alright. And our end piece. I mean, cuts don't have to be perfect, just approximately the same size. So, like I said, we've got, as far as bell peppers are concerned, we've got 2 red and 1 green. I'll come back after I chop the rest of these up. We'll do one more. We'll do the green one. Basically how you're supposed to clean this. Again, down, around, hold the core, and out. That goes in the garbage, and you're left with nice, clean pepper. Alright, we'll come back. Okay, I promised you some cup measurements and weights. So we're at showing 494 grams on the scale, and we've got about 4 cups of the diced bell peppers. So we'll move those aside, and we'll work on the celery and onions. Quick shot of our beef. Still haven't touched it. You can see that liquid is definitely dropping. So we're getting to the point where it's going to start frying. So I'll bring you back when that happens. I just want you to see that most of the liquid now has evaporated. And we should be hearing a sound change shortly. Alright guys, let's cut some celery up. You know what, I'm not even going to clean the leaves. I'm just going to top them a little bit. Just to get those sort of dried bits off that they, obviously they don't come from the grocery store with them trimmed. So anyway, we're just going to just slice through like so. Again, just nice spoon-sized pieces, not too big and chunky. Something that'll match the size of the bell peppers that we just cut up. If you got really big celery, you may want to chop the bottoms up separately, but these don't look too bad. You can put the celery leaves in if you want, just chop them up a little bit. I'll get my scale a little bit closer here. You see that? Yeah. If you don't have one of these pickup tools, they're fantastic. I showed it in my previous videos. It's better than better using one of these than scraping everything together with a knife. That's sort of a bad habit I see a lot of people do, is they'll take their sharp chef knife and they'll do something like this. They'll just, they'll start scraping like this all the food. They don't even turn it over. I mean, I've seen people do it this way, but obviously that's kind of dangerous. So I find that this little stainless steel scraper works really well. Anyway, for celery, 200 grams, 206 grams on the scale, and that equates to about, let's see what we got here. Well, let's call it 2 cups. Again, you don't have to be exact, this is chili. So 2 cups of chopped celery. We'll move on to the Spanish onion. Alright, Spanish onion, top and bottom, carefully skin off. I've shown you how to do this before in some of my my soup videos, but we're going to show you again just to reinforce how to properly dice an onion. A little bit of skin here. Alright, so we're going to chop it just in half. Okay, this is the root end here. So put the root end away from you. Nice sharp knife. You're just going to slice down carefully all the way through. Take your knife, parallel, cut it in. Maybe twice, depending on the dice size that you're looking for. Alright, then down. You may have to do the root towards the root end, just another couple quick cuts, and then turn the end over and just dice it down. Okay, we'll do the other half and we'll come back and give you a cup and weight measurement. Alright, back to our ground beef. And I'm not sure whether you can hear that or not, but it's definitely frying. And you can actually see the color of the beef on the edges start to get very, very brown. Alright, I'm going to get myself a plastic spoon so I don't scratch the bottom of my pot. And we'll flip that beef around. Remember, this is medium ground beef, so this has a fair amount of fat in it. So we're going to be draining some of this fat off. That's what we're looking for, that nice dark brown color. That's where all the flavor is going to come from. Break it up a little bit more as you go. Alright, we'll continue cooking that and we'll come back. Okay, update on the onions. 415 grams. Let's call that 4 cups. Pretty darn close to 4 cups. So again, don't have to be precise. 4 cups, close enough. Alright guys, the beef is browning up nicely. So I think what we're going to do now is we are going to drain the excess fat. We'll leave a tiny little bit of fat in. And then we're going to start to add in our vegetables. So we'll drain away the excess and we'll come back and start the next step. Alright, we've drained away the excess fat and we've put the beef back in the pot. At this point I like to add some chili powder and mix it in with the ground beef. I add chili powder 2 or 3 times during the cooking process. I like to fry the beef with a little bit of chili powder, so I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of chili powder at this point. And we're just going to fry the beef for maybe a minute or so with that chili powder. It gives a little bit of a different flavor. If you add chili during different stages of cooking, maybe it's just in my mind, but that's what I've always done, and that's what I prefer to do. Just watch you don't burn the chili to the bottom of the pot. We're going to start getting our vegetables in here as well. So we're going to start adding our onions in. Let's fry this around with the onions for a bit. We're going to add our garlic in. Get some garlic in here. Let's do a tablespoon of garlic. Tablespoon of garlic. Smells good in here already. Keep stirring. Still on high heat. Scrape up any of the brown bits from the bottom of the pot. Going to cook those onions for a minute or so, and we're going to add the rest of our vegetables, stir those in. Then we are going to start adding our wet ingredients, our tomatoes and our beef stock. We'll add our beef stock first, and we'll do what's called deglazing the pan. And deglazing the pan is just scraping up all those brown bits that are collecting on the bottom of the pot. It's all the good flavor down there. Looking good. Let that in our peppers and celery. Nice and colorful. Okay, we'll start getting ready with our beef stock. So we have a liter of beef stock. Not quite a liter, actually 900 milliliters. I can give you a cup measurement for any of the US viewers, or anybody who doesn't use metric. 4 cups beef broth. Again, you could use homemade beef broth or beef stock if you had it. Alright, we're going to add that beef broth in. And then again, scrape the bottom of the pot. Make sure you get into those corners. Old school wooden spoons, good for this. I don't like the feel of wooden spoons. For some reason they don't feel good in my hands, so I don't mind like the coated bamboo ones, but the actual raw wooden ones I just don't like. Never been a fan of those. They give me the heebie-jeebies. Alright, let's bring that up to a boil. We'll get that beef broth boiling. In the meantime, we're going to open up our canned tomato products, and we'll come back in a minute. Alright, you can just see that the beef stock coming up to a boil. So just before I add our tomatoes in, we're going to add a bit more, another shot of chili powder. So we're going to add another tablespoon chili powder. We're going to add a tablespoon of our chipotle for starters. There's the chipotle. Like I said, we'll add more of this towards the end of the cooking. We're going to adjust the taste and add what we think we need. We're going to add some Worcester. Go 1 tablespoon of Worcester. Straight in there. You notice we haven't added any salt or pepper yet. Let's add some pepper in there. Fresh ground pepper. I like mine coarsely ground. Again, I've showed you this grinder before. It's got a setting on the top for fine or coarse. And then we're going to add a pinch of salt in here as well. Excuse me, excuse my reach. A little salt. Let's give that a stir. Now I don't add my beans till I would say about an hour from now, an hour to an hour and a half. I want the tomatoes to cook with the beef and the peppers. And then I add my beans more towards the end of the cooking. Looking good. Again, scrape the bottom of the pot, scrape the side of the pot. Alright, time for the tomatoes. So we've got 2 cans of tomatoes. Tomatoes are 796 ml tins, which is a 26 fluid ounce tin. Again, these are the diced tomatoes with the herbs. It'll be a pretty full pot by the time we're done. Hopefully we'll have room for the beans. Let's turn her down to a simmer. Get this stirred in. So this is obviously going to reduce a bit as it cooks. Alright, we need it to reduce. Get those beans in there. So we'll let this cook for at least an hour, probably an hour and a half. I would say we'll simmer this for an hour and a half. And we will come back and we'll have a look. We'll add our beans, we'll check our seasoning, probably add a bit more chili powder, possibly a little bit more chipotle, check our salt and pepper, and see how we're doing. That's it for now. We'll come back in an hour to an hour and a half. Alright guys, we've given the chili a quick stir, and we've been stirring it occasionally now and again. Alexa, how much time's left?
You have 30 minutes left on your 1 hour and 30-minute timer.
Okay, so 30 minutes left, and then we're going to add our beans in. So I'm hoping that we have enough head space in the pot to get at least 2 cans of beans in here. So we'll see what it looks like half an hour from now. Looking good, smelling good. We'll come back. Alexa, how much time's left?
There's less than 10 seconds left on your 1 hour and 30-minute timer.
Alright, an hour and 30 minutes is up. Alexa, stop. And you can see that's reduced fairly significantly. It's looking very, very good. So we are going to add our beans. So we're going to open 2 cans to start. We'll open 1 white and 1 red. We're going to drain them and rinse them. And we'll come back before we add them in. Alright guys, we've got 2 of the cans, 1 white and 1 red kidney beans washed and drained. We're going to add those in. I'm hoping I can get the 3 cans in, but I better not tempt fate. I'll go with the 2 first of all and see if I can fit those in. So here they are, ready to be dropped in the pot. So these are 540 ml tins, or a 19 ounce Imperial. So here we go. Here's the first 2. We'll give those a stir. Carefully. Oh yeah, I think I'm going to be able to get that other tin in there. We're going to want to cook this now for another, I would say another hour. It's going to take a while for this to come back up to a simmer now we've added those beans in there. So another hour for sure. And again, we're going to check our seasoning. Yeah, I think I can get another can in there. So I'm going to crack the other can opener and can open, sorry, and we'll fold those in as well. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so here we go. Here's the 3rd can of beans in the pot. So yeah, it's a little full, but it's all going to fit in there. Like I said, if you're going to make it, you may as well make it, right? Alright. So like I said, let's let her go for another hour. We'll come back after a half an hour. Alexa, set a timer for 1 hour.
1 hour, starting now.
And we'll come back after about a half an hour, and we'll have a look and see where we're at. Yeah, she's a little full, but again, it's going to reduce a little bit more. Anyway, half an hour, we'll come back, have a quick taste, and adjust the seasoning, add what we think we need to add, and finish it off, and have some dinner. Okay, half an hour left of cooking, and my mom's probably watching. She's stressing out about how full this pot is. Don't worry, Mom, I'm a professional. Anyway, we're going to give it a bit of a stir. And we're going to give it a bit of a taste. It's looking good. Said we've got another half an hour to simmer this. Make sure the beans are nice and tender. Everything else is looking good. Got a good meat to bean to veg ratio going, I think. Those canned tomatoes have broken down nicely. Like I said, I don't particularly like big chunks of tomatoes in mine. So that's looking good. Alright, we'll give this a quick taste. And regardless of what it tastes like, I'm going to say, oh boy, is that good. That's what they do on TV, right? Oh boy, is that good. I think from a chili perspective, I think we've got a good chili flavor. Definitely taste that chipotle in there. Got some smokiness. Just about the right amount of heat for me. I'm going to add a little bit more black pepper, because I like black pepper. I think the salt is good. Just stir that in. Yeah. I think it's going to be okay. Alright, we'll continue to cook this for another half an hour. And we'll give you one last view before we go and have dinner. Alright, we'll be back in half an hour.